FM 100 gets radio broadcast rights for Women's World Cup. Chief Secretary pushes for efficiency in public service. And nurses ready to walk off jobs.
This is National EMTV News with Helen Sayer.
Good evening and welcome to Friday's news. Radio station FM 100, a subsidiary of Telecom PNG, has acquired the radio broadcast rights for the FIFA Under-20 Women's World Cup 2016 from MTV. This announcement was made in a closed agreement with MTV's Chief Executive Officer Banu Sood and FM 100's Managing Director John Mong.
MTV, who owns the television and radio rights for coverage of the FIFA Under-20 Women's World Cup in Papua New Guinea, has sold the radio rights to FM 100 in a bid to ensure the widest possible coverage of the event.
MTV is very pleased to announce the sub-licensing of radio rights of FIFA Under-20 Women World Cup to FM 100. This will allow widest possible coverage of this world-class event of national importance to the people of Papua New Guinea.
The FIFA Under-20 Women's World Cup 2016 will be hosted by Papua New Guinea, and FM 100 and MTV will both telecast all of PNG's matches live respectively.
We take this opportunity once again to thank Media in Guinea and MTV to be part of the media team as the official radio station for the FIFA Under-20 Women's World Cup in 2016, and we are looking forward to this event, working closely with MTV and the staff to make sure that our people, especially those who are disadvantaged by geographic location and they couldn't make it, to put most people watch this game live on MTV and hear through our broadcast network, the FM 100, throughout the sites that we cover toward the urban centers and rural settings to Papua New Guinea.
With the acquisition of these rights, FM 100 will be the official radio station of the FIFA Under-20 Women's World Cup Papua New Guinea.
One of the best and the first sport to be played in Papua New Guinea, and we're very excited to be building football as one of the major sports in the country, because it also helps the country's image in the world.
PNG will be playing 3 scheduled matches, with their first 2 matches on the 13th and 16th of November at the Sir John Guy Stadium, and the hosts are in Group A together with Brazil, Sweden and Democratic Republic of Korea. Papua New Guinea's third and final game in the group stages will be on Sunday, 20th November at the National Football Stadium. The event will feature 16 countries from around the world, playing across 4 venues in Port Moresby.
At least as talented as their forebears.
Shane Saroya, National EMTV News.
Prime Minister Peter O'Neill arrived in Pohnpei in the Federated States of Micronesia on Thursday for the 47th Pacific Islands Forum. As outgoing chair of the Pacific Islands Forum, Mr. O'Neill acknowledged all the Pacific Island nations in their collective efforts to deal with the concerns of Pacific Island nations. He said the past year has seen much work put into concluding trade deals like PESA Plus, which is an agreement PNG will not be part of. He said this decision was reached after careful analysis and considering the size and structure of PNG's economy would see a net loss for PNG through PESA Plus. Mr. O'Neill, however, acknowledged that PESA Plus will be a strong bonus to many of the economies in the region. Chief Secretary to Government Isaac Lupari told heads of departments gathered in Lae today that efficiency must be improved in the public service. He said the public sector has become a huge monster in the last 40 years, eating a third of the national budget as recurrent. Nearly 5 billion kina this year, 300 million kina is payroll alone. Bethany Harriman reports from Lae.
The 4th departmental heads monthly meeting was held at Lae's Igam Barracks today, bringing together different heads of department. Having them all at one place is something that Chief Secretary Isaac Lupari described as unity within the government departments.
Because many of these heads of government are policy designers. So we don't want policy to be designed in vacuum. We need to understand the realities on the ground, If we are talking about a health issue, we need to know what is happening on the ground to be able to make that policy intervention, to recommend that policy prescription to the government, to make that decision, even including in terms of determining resource. So public service is the core function is to implement government policy.
The aim of the meet is to share and discuss their department's progress and challenges. They are also improving the way they manage their departments. Though there is progress, a lot still needs to be done in managing departments and saving costs. There are duplications of positions, and the Chief Secretary says the public service has become a monster over the last 40 years, eating nearly 33% of the recurrent national budget.
Political leader, it's time. Now we need to trim these public servants because it's consuming so much resources. Resources can be utilized for service delivery. We spent almost 1/3 of the budget on public service. We're talking about a 12 to 12 billion Kina budget. 1/3 of that is spent just on public service. It's a huge amount of money going. And there's a lot of duplication, there's a lot of wastage. My task is to see where we are, what needs to be done, and convince my colleagues that we have to move in that direction.
There has been a lot of wastage in funding in the public service, but the 2 days will be about the progress and the challenges faced by these departments. Today, the heads of the National Housing Corporation, the Treasury Department, Personal Management and the Transport Department all presented about their departments. Bethany Harriman, National MTV News, Leh.
The commander of the Joint Services Training College in Leh, Colonel Carl Warkane, has highlighted infrastructure, funding and logistics as key challenges facing the college at the start of a 2-day meeting of all department heads in Leh. The college was reopened in February after its closure more than 30 years ago. However, 8 months into operation, the college's teething problems have been compounded by cash flow constraints the country is faced with at the moment.
The reopening of the Joint Services Training College was in line with moves to build the capacity of the Papua New Guinea Defence Force, with an increase of personnel and infrastructure forming the core of the reforms. But 8 months since the opening, the long-standing funding and infrastructure problems continue to plague the operations of the college. Commander of the college, Colonel Carl Warkane, who made a presentation at the meeting of department heads in Leh, said even the basics needed for the operations of the college are being affected.
We are putting strain on our recurrent budget, but a lot of it, like uniforms, boost gear, rations, the Australian Defence Force funded. So they relieve us in those areas because of under the Defence Cooperation Program. If there was no assistance coming from Defence Cooperation Program, I think the training will basically come to a halt because we don't have the basics.
The college needs at least 6 million kina for the next 2 years for basic equipment, including weapons, ammunition and field gear for the 40 soldiers, police and corrections officers currently in training.
We have to cope with it because if we don't do that, then we will not conduct our training. And so because we're under the current cooperation program, they're coming to assist us, we allow them to do that. But we need to draw a line somewhere.
Over the next 2 days, the department heads gathered here will probably come to understand the importance of this vital training institution. And the PNG Defence Force, on the other hand, wants important funding bodies to understand that the PNG Defence Force's funding needs extend beyond a political term. Scott Waide, National MTV News, Leh.
Nurses around the country will walk off their jobs next week if the government does not respond to their log of claims. This is the message from the PNG Nurses Association President Stephen Nawick, who said they will give the government and all related parties until Tuesday to respond to their request. He added if the response is not favorable, nurses will begin a nationwide strike next week.
PNG Nurses Association says the government is yet to respond to the log of claims that has expired in 2012. The Nurses Association made a submission to the government. However, they said the response was not in their favor. An agreement was signed on the 2nd of December 2015. However, PNG Nurses Association says the agreement has not been budgeted for. The log of claims has 3 variables. It calls for an increase in salary, work value study, and establishment of housing scheme. The Nurses Association say they have exhausted all authoritative actions. This includes a request to the Industrial Registrar to conduct a secret ballot.
Up till now, we haven't got a response from the Industrial Registrar's office. But we have resolutions from our 21 branches, and I must say there is 100% support for a stop work. The committee of the Papua New Guinea Association resolved that between now and Tuesday, close of business, if there is no favorable response by way of a letter to PNG Association telling us that they have set a scheduled date for implementation, PNG Association and its members will walk off.
Members of the lay branch and the NCD Health Services are currently discussing issues in Port Moresby. The PNG Nurses Association has more than 4,000 members, with the majority in the rural areas. The strike will only be carried out by members of the Nurses Association. Marilyn Diaukatam, National EMTV News.
National EMTV News continues after the break. Stay with us. Welcome back. Police in Northern Province have apprehended and charged 16 sea piracy suspects for being in possession of homemade guns, pistols and some iron rods. Provincial Police Commander Lincoln Girari said this afternoon. Police caught the youths at Guinea Point near the border of Morbe and Northern in the early hours of Wednesday. 4 police officers were on their way to Lae to pick up an armed robbery suspect under police custody by dinghy when they intercepted the suspected pirates. The officers conducted a search and found the offensive weapons. The officers aborted their mission to Lae and brought the suspects back to Popondetta. They will appear in court next week with no bail granted. Meanwhile, PPC Girari says he wants a drug-free society. Responding to questions raised by EMTV this afternoon, Mr. Girari said they are now identifying people and villages growing marijuana. This afternoon, a man in his 40s from Serembe village in the Sohe district was arrested for cultivating matured marijuana. The suspect is now in police custody. PPC Girari said the sale of marijuana has been flooding in rural and urban areas. A group of wood carvers and vendors of arts and craft in Lae are calling on the provincial government to provide a proper shelter to sell their items. They normally sell their items along the shops in the city where they encounter difficulties dealing with city authorities. The crafts include the traditional bilum, 2 hand baskets and handcrafted jewelry.
This carved coffee table took 3 months to carve. The wood used was bought to a cost of 300 kina. It is very difficult to take the table out to market in a city like Lae where it rains most of the time. The wood carver who carved this coffee table, Rodney Willie, says a shelter is a need for them in order to properly display their item for sale.
Can market good now. Or tourists now, customer can round or look or something.
The wood carvers and the arts and craft vendors face difficulties when taking their items out to sell. Most of the items are sold under big shady trees and along shopping centers. Some of the items are on seasonal sales, where the vendors sell them during big events such as the Independence celebration.
En we black start market last year. Na after this life, September 16, we don't know market. We don't know a place to market now.
Some of these arts and crafts found outside along shops include wood carvings and crafted jewelry and bilums. Most of them, especially the dyed bilums and handcrafts, get destroyed quickly by rain. Lae's resident Heather Yangi said this is a big concern.
Government must look na times 30 on marketplace where me black can go na market.
Julie Badui Owa, National EMTV News, Lae.
Police Commissioner Gary Baki has instructed Lay Metropolitan Commander Chief Superintendent Anthony Wagambi to fully train 25 new police reserve officers. These officers will be working under the guidance of regular police officers and will be stationed at the new police station at Malahang once it is completed. Baki's instruction follows the signing of a memorandum of understanding between the police and Ahi Hope Foundation yesterday.
The MOU, signed yesterday, is between the Lay Police and the Ahi Hope Foundation to work as partners in the rehabilitation of the Malang Police Station. This is a community project that will be fully funded by the Ahi Hope Foundation at the cost of 300,000 kina.
By the end of this month, the groundbreaking ceremony would begin and the initial project will start. We've planned the project for 6 months. We believe that we can build it in 6 months. So it would take us from now until 27.
The new station will help in the curbing of law and order problems in Malahang and surrounding communities. The signing also allows the two parties to recruit and train local IE villagers as peace officers, magistrates and reserve police. Police Commissioner Gary Baki has also made a commitment to provide a police vehicle to assist officers.
It's a welcoming news that giving us hope that there is more opportunity for us to look at addressing the law and order issue affecting our community, particularly in that part of the Metropolitan Command.
IELLG President Sam Agi says the crime rate at Malahang and surrounding areas is on the rise. The new police station, once completed, will help minimize law and order problems.
We believe it was one of the presence of the police and by something by your right.
Mata Luis, National EMTV News, Lay.
The PNG Defence Force commander says the government needs to understand the funding and equipment needs of the force. Major General Gilbert Toropo said most times funding arms of government tend to treat the PNGDF as civilian departments and its impacts on key areas of operations because funds are not readily available. The commander's comments come as the rebuilding of the Defence Force continues, with a large part of the funding coming from the Australian government.
Ongoing reforms in the Papua New Guinea Defence Force are being aimed at rebuilding with a greater focus on regional security. Some of the objectives include the conversion of the recently opened Joint Services College into a regional training centre that caters to the needs of other Pacific Island countries within the Melanesian Spearhead Group. But the PNG Defence Force commander says successive governments haven't understood the funding needs of the military.
But PNG Defence organization's roles and responsibilities are quite unique, and it requires different capabilities to be able to conduct its constitutional roles and responsibilities, and that means manpower. Manpower will constitute people to train servicemen and women, also people to support troops in operations.
Ideally, the PNG Defence Force needs to plan long-term for hardware purchases and maintenance. It also needs to incrementally build capacity and manpower as the population grows and as the economic needs of the country rise. But that hasn't been the case previously. After the Bougainville crisis, the PNG Defence Force was downsized to 2,000 personnel, while the priorities remained pretty much the same.
We were downsized from 5,000 to 2,000 men in 2002, but that did not change our task. Our task remained the same, and at a minimum, we required 5,000 manpower to conduct our constitutional responsibilities.
After 30 years, the reopening of the Joint Services College at the Igam Barracks in Ley has brought renewed youthful vigour to the fatigued PNG Defence Force. For the first time in 3 decades, Igam Barracks received new recruits from all over Papua New Guinea and from 3 disciplinary services. Toropo now sees the PNG Defence Force playing a greater role in nation building through the Engineering Battalion. Scott Waide, National EMTV News, Ley.
Prime Minister Peter O'Neill reaffirmed PNG's position on PESA Plus at the Pacific Islands Leaders Summit, saying PNG will not be signing the agreement because it will not benefit the country. He said depending on the size and structure of PNG's economy, signing on to PESA Plus will mean a net loss for PNG. Negotiations on PESA Plus started 7 years ago among Australia and New Zealand and the 14 Forum Island countries. While there is a strong push to conclude the agreement this year, there is still some reservations by Pacific Island countries who are not all convinced that conditions of the agreement will benefit their economy. PNG's withdrawal from PESA Plus is the strongest act of disagreement to PESA Plus conditions to date. Fiji will be withdrawing from the Pacific Agreement on Closer Economic Relations or PESA Plus talks. PESA Plus is an umbrella agreement between members of the Pacific Islands Forum, including Australia and New Zealand. It is supposed to provide a framework for the future development of trade cooperation in the region.
According to FBC News, Fiji Trade Minister Fayaz Koya officially announced the country's withdrawal in Nadi this morning. Mr. Koya says Fiji's decision is based on a lack of flexibility from Australia and New Zealand on key concerns. He added that the country's concerns were not fully addressed at last month's Special Trade Ministers Summit on PESA Plus in New Zealand. Early last month, Minister for Trade, Commerce and Industry Richard Maru bluntly told a visiting Australian trade delegation that PNG will not partake in trade that will not directly benefit the country. Prime Minister Peter O'Neill echoed the minister's stance during his speech this morning at the Pacific Islands Forum. Leanne Jarari, National EMTV News.
And now looking at our finance news, the kina closed unchanged at $0.3155 US in the interbank markets. At Bank South Pacific, your kina was buying $0.3080 US, $0.3996 Australian dollars, $0.2704 euro and 31.15 Japanese yen. Looking at commodity prices at New York close, gold and coffee closed lower, while cocoa and copra closed the day lower. Copper and palm oil closed higher, and crude oil closed the day lower. And on the stock market, the Dow Jones closed at 46.23 points lower, the ASX is trading at 42.65 points lower, and the All Ordinaries is trading at 40.55 points lower. We'll be back with more news. Stay tuned. Welcome back. Mulbaya Lumusa MP Koi Trape presented 2015 DSIP reports from his electorate to the Department of Implementation and Rural Development. From 10 million kina, 3 million was used in the constructing of roads and bridges, and 2 million kina each to health and education sectors. Another 1 million kina was used for law and order in the Mulbaya area. From the reports, 2 new high schools and a hospital were being built, and a road linking Baya from Kombiam in Enga province. A wildlife sanctuary was also revived and will soon open for tourists.
And you can see a lot of changes. We built a new hospital in Baya, which is a district hospital, which is partnership with the provincial government and the Australian aid. And also the Lungsa Health Center. And, so we partnership with the provincial government and the Australian aid, and which is good. And also the water project we have. We have contributed with Australian aid funding to the hospital.
The people of West Sepik Province have welcomed air services provided by PNG Air through its new ATR aircraft. For the locals, it's a relief to travel on a bigger aircraft like the ATR because Vanimo has been serviced by smaller aircrafts in the past. The services will also promote regional tourism and allow people to choose which airline to fly with.
Now, there is a very high demand here with passenger and cargo movements, especially when West Sepik province shares a border with Indonesia. Alpha Tango Charlie is the latest and fourth ATR aircraft for PNG Air. Yesterday, she made her maiden flight to Vanimo, West Sepik province, under the command of Captains Damien Parkinson and Rafael Come. It was a surprise for commuters to Vanimo town who flocked to the airport to catch a glimpse at the new aircraft. Peter Tutu worked with this airline operator from its humble beginnings as MBA and has seen the airline grow from strength to strength.
When I'm contribution, me carry kai. Yeah, me operate now. Pian salimol twin notice. Now start location.
The ground operations staffs were also given hands-on experience during training sessions. PNG Vanimo was confident this ATR service will increase capacity because of the trade center at Batas at the Papua New Guinea and Indonesian border.
It's going to be a great relief to the demand out here because the public servants and the companies, those traveling in and out, the Asians coming in here, there's a gateway to travel into Mosby, lay elsewhere they go.
Alpha Tango Charlie flew to Daru, Western Province after Vanimo. Fabian Hakelitz, National EMTV News.
Korea's rural development strategy presents an interesting case for economic development in PNG. Based on the ideals of the New Village movement, the strategy was initiated in Korea in the 1970s to bring Korea out of poverty. 40 years later, Korea's economy grew to become one of the leading economies in the world.
This strategy was highlighted at the PNG-Korea dialogue as part of the commemoration of 40 years of bilateral relations between the two countries. Uno Konisimo, who currently works with the Eastern Highlands provincial government, is an advocate of the Korean rural development. The strategy was conceived after the end of Japanese occupation in Korea, which left the country in poverty. It is a strategy that is fundamentally about encouraging and nurturing a can-do attitude among Korean citizens, and they started with the rural population by giving them bags of cement which they were encouraged to collectively use for communal purposes. With the success of the strategy, Korea saw economic benefits. In less than 10 years, Korea's rural economy grew to surpass the urban economy, and Korea stopped from receiving aid from its biggest donor, America. As one of the leading economies in the world today, Korea now delivers aid to other developing countries where they encourage the mentality of the New Village movement. This strategy is also being used as a tool in achieving the UN Sustainable Development Goals. This is an aspect of Korean culture that is hoped to catch on here in PNG, and Eastern Highlands has already tried to implement it. Korean ambassador to PNG, Kim Song-chun, said Korea sincerely wishes to share its know-how with PNG. Sarah Aupong, National EMTV News.
Turning overseas, North Korea is not the only country rattling the U.S. and its allies this week. Washington says a Russian jet made an unsafe intercept to the U.S. plane, the Black Sea, on Wednesday.
Fresh reason for concern following the close encounter of a Russian jet and a U.S. reconnaissance plane, the Russians coming within 10 feet of the U.S. aircraft.
On the deck, below the bridge wing.
Just the latest in a series of Russian provocations directed at the U.S. military in the air and at sea this year. Defense Secretary Ash Carter warning the Russian government this week that the U.S. is watching and is ready to act.
Make no mistake, we will defend our allies, the principled international order, and the positive future it affords us. We will counter attempts to undermine our collective security.
And with Russian aggression not decreasing, some see a deliberate strategy at work.
The fact that they are engaging the U.S. in such a dramatic fashion indicates that they are willing to challenge the U.S. at every step of the way.
Bridge-to-bridge comms were conducted, no response.
And Russia is hardly the only country attempting to provoke the U.S. military.
Appears to be unsafe, unprofessional.
Iran continues to harass U.S. ships with dangerous approaches like this that U.S. military officials have deemed unsafe, some coming within 100 yards of U.S. Navy vessels. In the most recent, an Iranian boat came to a dead stop in front of a U.S. Navy ship, risking collision. The Pentagon points out there have been 31 such encounters this year so far, up from 23 incidents all of last year.
They are telegraphing the way that they will counter U.S. vessels. That shows that they want to challenge U.S. vessels, and they're willing to do so not only in wartime, but also in peacetime.
Each incident carries with it the risk of miscalculation and the United States being drawn into an unintended conflict. And the stakes even higher in the Pacific, where North Korea continues to test ballistic missiles, often with little warning, and the potential for dire consequences, weapons that may be able one day to reach the United States.
In the U.S. election campaign, presidential candidate Hillary Clinton says her challenger's obsession with Russian leader Vladimir Putin is scary and unpatriotic. Some intelligence analysts are also concerned about the Donald Trump-Putin political love affair.
Gushing again over Vladimir Putin.
If he says great things about me, I'm going to say great things about him.
Trump believes Putin called him brilliant a few months ago. Putin later said he only called Trump bright. But now it's Trump's comments about the Russian president's leadership made to NBC News, which have brought serious fallout.
I mean, the man has very strong control over a country. Now, it's a very different system, and I don't happen to like the system. But certainly in that system, he's been a leader far more than our president has been a leader.
Putin, the man who invaded Ukraine, annexed Crimea, backs the brutal Syrian dictator Bashar al-Assad, crushes those who oppose him inside Russia, and may well be responsible for the hack of the Democratic National Committee's computers. That Vladimir Putin, Trump says, outshines President Obama. Fresh meat for Hillary Clinton.
It is scary because it suggests he will let Putin do whatever Putin wants to do and then make excuses for him.
But Trump's embrace of Putin isn't just scaring Trump's rival.
I'm uncomfortable comparing the President of the United States to someone who's turned out to be a dictator.
Philip Mudd, a career intelligence analyst and executive at the CIA, FBI, and the White House National Security Council, is also troubled by Trump's declaration that he'd have a very good relationship with Putin.
In places like Europe, in places like Syria, in Iran, where America has critical policy interests, Putin has interests that are at variance. For example, in Syria, he supports the continuation of the Assad regime. The Americans obviously do not.
By contrast, experts say Putin believes Hillary Clinton will be more formidable.
Vladimir Putin would obviously prefer that Trump became president than Hillary Clinton, mostly because he really dislikes Hillary Clinton.
Some believe Putin, the former KGB officer, is manipulating Trump by stroking his ego. Former CIA Director Michael Morrell said this to ABC News.
Donald Trump didn't even understand, right, that Putin was playing him. So in Putin's mind, I have no doubt that Putin thinks that he's an unwitting agent of the Russian Federation, although Putin would never say that.
How might Putin manipulate Trump if Trump's elected?
I can imagine, at least in the early stages, Putin sort of getting Trump to believe everything that he says by flattery, by taking Trump seriously, by complimenting him on his leadership ability, and then being a bad faith negotiator, which he always is.
But analyst Masha Gessen believes that if Trump wins the presidency, a dangerous confrontation between Trump and Putin is more likely. She calls it two mentally unstable, aggressive men with nuclear buttons. We reached out to the Trump campaign. They wouldn't respond directly to that or to the other criticisms of Trump's compliments of Putin. Trump himself has said that Putin's compliments of him would have, quote, zero impact on their relationship.
True Guy Sports is next. Don't go away.
True Guy Sports.
Welcome to Chukai Sports. PNG Games may have been deferred and schedules disrupted. However, regulations for some sporting bodies still stand. Following the endorsement by the Sport Technical Advisory Committee of the PNG Games, Athletics PNG has released rules for competition. President Tony Green said elite athletes are restricted from participating. Diniros Raiko reports.
Green said every province is allowed to send a maximum of 3 athletes, and that excludes PNG's elite athletes, and all may participate in no more than 3 events. President Green added it is very important to the majority of national squad athletes who do not get enough competition opportunities to be allowed to take part. He said those who already have sufficient opportunities to compete will be restricted. These elite athletes are Olympians Toya Wisil and Tio Pinyao, Raleigh Caputin, Donna Cornell, Peniel Richard and Edwin Monaghy. With the recent announcement of the Games deferral by the Sports Minister, the initial competition dates set by Athletics PNG will now change. The competition categories are by 400 meters hurdles, the 100 meters heats, long distance, and the qualifying heats in the 4x400 meters relay. The athletics competition will wind down with a full track and field session and the half marathon run. And athletes will be required to show a proof of age if challenged. Diniros Raiko, National EMTV Sports.
Following the deferral of the PNG Games, Deputy Chairman of the Host Organizing Committee, Daka Wagai, said provinces will have enough time to prepare themselves. He said this will not only give respective provinces time to prepare, but also the Host Organizing Committee to have everything ready in time.
With the 4 months extension to the 6th BSP PNG Games, Deputy Chairman of the Host Organizing Committee, Daka Wagai, told MTV today that despite the inconvenience caused, this will give respective provinces ample time to get themselves ready. This also helps them to find sponsors and those who are yet to make proper selections to prepare well for the event.
Having the Games coming up in November has put us under some extreme pressure to secure funding and also to ensure that all the preparation work catch up with the deadlines. To commend our contractors, especially Nivani, the major contractor, who has been under a lot of stress with funding delays and all these things, but they were very supportive. Though we have few issues, it's normal that we have to go through some issues in order to achieve our objectives.
He said although the people of Host Province have looked forward to hosting the Games in November, despite some of them showing frustration, both the Host Organizing Committee and PNG Sports Foundation wants to make sure and feel that PNG Games next year should be given the same attention like the FIFA Under-20 Women's World Cup.
Our service providers also, I think some have been preparing, struggling with time to meet the deadlines, especially in accommodation, transportation, food especially. I know there are some of who have already started growing food for the deadline in November. It will definitely affect them, but I think we can manage all that.
Godwin Eki, National EMTV Sports.
Chukai Sports continues after the break. Stay with us.
Chukai Sports.
Welcome back to Chukai Sports. ITI POM Cricket will see its last 2 divisions grand final this weekend. In the Premier Division, Swire Shipping Hoods will take on IBS Poriporina tomorrow, and in the women's, Dulax United will be facing IBS Poriporina. The women's game starts at 9:30, whilst the Premier men starts at 1 p.m. The Royal PNG Constabulary Band will provide entertainment and play the national anthem before both games. Comedian Sinaka Kahu will also entertain throughout the day, with fellow MC former Barramundi skipper Chris Amini providing the cricket insights, ending with the season presentation to be held at the conclusion of the men's final. To NRL, the first of the NRL Finals playoff will see the Broncos and Titans meet for the 21st time tonight, but the first time in sudden death. There are no second chances on offer for the losers this week, however, with the Titans trying to defy recent history. In the past 14 meetings, Broncos have won 12. The Broncos have had some injury concerns at training, all spending time away from the main group during the build-up, but all have been named by Coach Wayne Bennett and are expected to play. There are no such concerns for the Titans, who have named the same team that went down 32-16 to the Cowboys last week with an extended 7-man bench. And that's a wrap for True Kai Sports. The weather details next.
True Kai Sports. True Kai Sports.
The weather details are proudly brought to you by Dulux Weather Shield. Worth doing with Dulux.
Your weather forecast for tonight and tomorrow. In the southern region, few thundery showers with rain in Port Moresby, some showers with rain in Kerema, thundery showers in Daru, showers with rain in Alotau, and few showers with rain in Popondetta. And in the Momase region, few showers with rain in Ley, thundery showers with rain in Medang, thundery showers easing, then rain in Wewak, and a shower or two in Vanimo. In the New Guinea Islands region, few thundery showers in Lorengau, shower or two in Kavieng, Kokopo, Rabaul, and Buka, and thundery showers with rain in Kimbe. And in the Highlands region, rain and showers in all centers. Forecast for small ships for the next 24 hours. Strong wind warning current for all coastal waters of southern PNG-Indonesia border through Torres Strait and Daru to Kiwa Island, including Hood Point to Samurai Island to Cape Vogel and all Milne Bay waters. Waters of southern PNG-Indonesian border through Torres Strait and Daru to Kiwa Island, seas of 2.5 to 3 meters. Waters of east of Kiwai Island to Kerema to Yule Island to Hood Point, seas of 2 to 2.5 meters. Waters of Hood Point to Samurai Islands, seas of 2.5 to 3 meters. Waters of eastern and western Milne Bay Islands, seas of 2 to 2.5 meters. Waters of Samurai Island to Cape Vogel to Finchhafen through Vitia Strait, Siasi Islands to Long Island, seas of 1 to 2.5 meters. Waters of Medang to Bogia to Wewak, to Aitape, to Vanimo and northern PNG-Indonesian border, seas of 0.5 to 1.5 meters. Waters of Manus and its western group of islands, and waters of New Island to New Britain and Bougainville, seas of 0.5 to 1.5 meters. Ocean forecast for PNG areas. In the Coral Sea, seas rather rough to rough with southeast winds at 25 to 30 knots. Solomon Seas, seas moderate to rather rough with southeast winds at 15 to 25 knots. Bismarck Sea, seas slight to moderate with southeast winds at 10 to 20 knots. And in the Pacific Ocean, seas slight with southeast winds at 10 to 15 knots.
The weather details are proudly brought to you by Dulux Weather Shield. Worth doing with Dulux.
And that's how we end another working week on this Friday, the 9th of September. From the news team, enjoy your weekend. Good night.